I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2013. We're meeting for the purpose of the Committee of the Whole. I would ask that it is 8:06. I would ask that you all rise and join me in a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, could you please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Deuter.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Holumsky.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Kipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Onquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner. Absent. 13 present, 1 absent.
13 present, 1 absent.
That's present. Do you count that?
13 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. Just real quick, Clerk Spencer, Mr. Grabowski. Alderman Kennedy's not here via monitor, but he is here. He can hear us.
Correct.
And he can participate.
Correct.
Alderman Kennedy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Fantastic. Okay. Agenda item number 2, announcements. Agenda item number 2, announcements. I do have an announcement this evening. The Senior Commission once a year sponsors a senior housing facilities tour and encourages elected officials to attend and tour some of the senior housing facilities in Elmhurst. That elected officials tour is this Saturday, November 16th, and we are meeting. The kickoff starts at the Extended Care Facility at 200 East Lake Street at 9:30 a.m. And it goes on to Greencastle, and then it goes on to the senior home sharing at 171 East Van Buren. Each one takes about 20 minutes, and then we allow times for travel. Long story short, starts at 9:30. We should be wrapping up around 11:30. I would ask all elected officials to do what they can to attend this Saturday at 9:30. That's it for me. City Manager Grabowski, any announcements?
Thank you. Yes, I do have one, I guess, exciting announcement, but also a heads up for people around the college area. The Elmhurst College will be hosting the 2013 Volleyball Division III Regional Championships starting on Thursday through Saturday. So traffic will be busier around the college. Please be aware of that.
Oh, Alderman Healy. You're Alderman York tonight.
Alderman Healy's right over there.
Yes, I think.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to say congratulations to the boys York cross-country team. They competed in the state meet this past weekend in Peoria. They finished in 5th place, which is, by their own standards, disappointing, but they had a lot of injuries and illnesses to overcome this year. It's still quite an accomplishment to finish in 5th place in the state of Illinois in cross-country, and especially when you consider that 4 out of the top 5 finishers in the state meet this year were from York's conference. Next up is the Nike Midwest Regional this Sunday in Terre Haute, Indiana, and they'll be sending teams down there for that, for the ultimate goal of making it to the national Nike event in Portland, Oregon on December 7th. Thank you.
Okay. Any other announcements? Alderman Leader.
I'd just like to announce the sad passing of my friend John Rebelletti, who is the father of State Representative Dennis Rebelletti. John died suddenly. He was a very fine man, good man, and there will be a wake at Gibbons Funeral Home on Thursday from 3 to 8. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Gutenkopf and I are holding a meeting this Thursday to receive input from the First Ward residents on the Hun Street final proposals that we're going to see tonight. The meeting will take place at 7 o'clock at the Elmhurst Public Library in the meeting room on the 2nd floor.
Okay. Any other announcements? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reinforce what you've already stated about the senior housing tour. I've done it years ago. If you haven't, as an elected official, gone, it is very interesting and intriguing to see the various types of senior housing we have within the city limits. It really opened up my eyes. We've had past debates on what our zoning code defines as senior housing, so I think it would be a great eye-opener if you have not gone to attend this Saturday.
Okay. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. Clerk Spencer, is there anyone who signed up this evening for public comment?
No one signed up, Mr.
No one has
Mayor.
signed up. Is there anybody, since we have no one to sign up, I'll go right to anybody in the audience. Is there anybody in the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign up on the sign-in sheet prior to this meeting? Seeing no one, we'll move on. That closes public comments. On to Hahn Street. The reason why we're here this evening, I think the council is aware that this is the next step in our vetting process. We had 5, we whittled it down to 3, and then one of those voluntarily dropped out on their own. So now we have the finalist portion, and we have 2 groups that will be presenting us tonight, Morningside and Lincoln. The order presentation was a random choosing, so that's why Morningside's going first, a flip of the coin. And that's really it. Each applicant was informed and allotted 1 hour to present their finalist portion. In the RFP that was sent out originally, there is a whole host of finalist requirements should they have made it to this level, about 1.5 pages of additional requirements, more detailed financials, et cetera. And that's what we will see here tonight. The City Council, the submissions were made by the 2 groups, and we have copies of those here, and that's what we will be going over this evening. As I said, we will be timing this. We are allowing each group 1 hour. That includes their presentation, and at their choosing, how much of that hour they allow for Q&A. Any other questions from the council or from the dais before we get started? Okay. City Manager Grabowski, anything else before we get started?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so the Morningside group is up first. And timer going. Where's my timer? Ready to go?
We are ready.
Great. What's the time check, City Manager Grabowski?
Just work.
8:13.
13.
Great.
Great.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Melissa Pittman, a Morningside Vice President. And on behalf of the entire North District team, I'd like to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to present tonight. We are honored to be among the finalists this evening. I'd like to quickly reintroduce some team members. I'll give a wave from the audience. David Strasberg is President and Managing Principal of Morningside. Brian Pollock is a Vice President and Principal. Mark Hopkins from HKM is our architect. Mike Elliott and John Zimmerman from Terra Consulting are our civil engineers. And Mark Sella from MDC Properties is our retail consultant. Mark apologizes for not being able to be here this evening, but he's celebrating his 30th wedding anniversary with his wife in New Zealand.
Melissa?
Yes.
Could you turn the microphone or
Oh,
speak
sure.
into it just a little bit? You're dropping in and out of the audio.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How's that better?
Great.
I will briefly cover the base concept and the 2 alternative concepts that we presented in our written materials, and then Mark Hopkins will go into our base concept with more detail. Our 4-story base concept is comprised of 5 main components: 139 ultra-luxury rental residences, 12,000 square feet of retail along York, an 11,000 square foot civic plaza along York, which bisects the retail, 114 public parking spaces on the first floor located behind the retail, and 210 private residential parking spaces located on the lower level. In our submittal book, we presented an alternate 6-story concept that includes 2 additional floors of residential units. In this concept, the building's second level contains both residential units and the additional parking needed to support the increased number of apartments. The number of apartment units would increase by 49% to 207, and the total number of parking spaces would increase by 31% to 426. The retail, civic plaza, and public parking would remain unchanged. All setbacks, yards, green space, and amenities would also remain unchanged, except for the addition of a pool at the second-story green courtyard. In addition to the 6-story alternate concept, we also included a conceptual grocery store plan. Several grocery store operators have contacted Morningside over the past 7 years with interest in having a presence in downtown Elmhurst. We have developed a conceptual plan showing how a grocery store could be integrated into the site should we be selected and the city determine that this plan merits further study. Please understand that we are not advocating for this grocery plan as it has several significant hurdles, but we want you to be aware that it is a viable alternative that should be considered. In this concept, Hahn Street remains undisturbed and a 21,000 square foot grocery store sits on the north side of Hahn. An additional 10,000 square feet of retail fronts York. A 3-story public parking deck is located on the south side of Hahn and provides the required parking for the grocery store and the storefront retail. The residential parking is located entirely underground. Approximately 200 residential units would occupy floors 2 through 6. I will now turn the presentation over to Mark Hopkins, who will discuss our base plan in detail.
Hello again, and thank you for inviting us back. It's an honor to be invited back, and we appreciate it, so thanks a lot. We have some new images to show you tonight regarding our proposal to share, but we wanted to take a little bit of a step back and let you know how it is that we got to where we're at, and the process we took, and the attitude that we took towards the development. It's important to me and the architects and the planners that worked on this project to let you folks know that David did something that a lot of our clientele doesn't do. He turned us loose to do the right thing on the site, according to him. He says, hey, look, he says, it's important to me to be a good neighbor, to make sure that we're doing this project right on this site, and we're not going to try to get this project to squeeze out every last square foot and unit that goes on. And so he talked about being sensitive to the concept. We have to be a good neighbor. All that has to take priority over aggression, so to speak. And he told us to do what was necessary to do that within the constraints of the RFP. In other words, he says, come up with a good building for this site at this time so that we're a good citizen of Elmhurst. And I hope that this attitude comes through as I describe some of the mechanics on the site and some of the details and show you some fresh images for the concept. Now, this is a site plan, and it's very, very similar. I think it might be identical to the one that I showed you last time, but the success of the plan has to do not only with the vertical architecture and the detailing and the styling of it that I told you about last time, but about the horizontal architecture as well. And that's important for me to tell you where we got to where we are. And so I want to talk about how we located these building components on the site and why. So when you look at the backwards C shape in the plan, in the tan, that's the 4-story portion of the building. So those are the residential units in a 4-story. And we held those back from York Street distance of 68 to 78 feet and held the face of that retail up against York Street and then the face of the residential components back that distance behind the retail. So we've got 1-story retail, as you can see, up against York Street, a 4-story building that sits behind the retail, and then the darker green on the left-hand side of the plan along Addison Street, that's our 3-story component. It has a vegetated roof, so it's colored green. That's held back from Addison Street 38 feet. So that down in the lower left-hand corner of the plan, you can see that the townhomes are ghosted in. Well, we aligned our project with that so that we could be as friendly to the Addison Street neighborhood as we could possibly be. Furthermore, we held the building back from the public alleys on the north and the south side sufficiently so that we could get lawn and foundation plantings and overstory trees even on the alleys. Up against the townhomes, There's a 12-foot dimension there on that plan. Can you see it on the lower left? And that is to the stair tower, but the rest of that building's 20 feet away from the property line because the driveway for those townhomes is only a couple feet from the property line. And what we're trying to do is get the right amount of space and the right amount of green space going all the way around this. And here's how it works in section. And the reason I'm showing you this is because, well, it's a section looking north. York Street's on the right, Addison Street's on the left, and you can just barely see at the edges of the exhibit where the curbs are. So you can see how much space we've got between the mass of this building and where the streets start. But really the success of any mixed-use project is going to come from how you deal with parking. Parking is a necessary component, and it's got to do two things. It's got to be user-friendly and intuitive to use. And we've got public and we've got residential parking going here, but it can't be front and center, and it's got to be hidden. So what we need to do is figure out how to be able, for the first-time user to be able to find it and use it easily, and then get out and do what he's going to do, whether that's shopping or finding a place down the business. So when parking isn't front and center, here's some devices that are used out in the world to help direct people to it. And these are a couple of examples of the way to do that. And our design has two such portals. And you can see them in the overall perspective in the alleys, at the ends of the alleys where the curb cuts are on York. Here, I'll use the mouse. There's one up here next to the Panera and another one down here on the alleys. And what those do is those intercept those people that are traveling on York, give them a fighting chance to find the parking immediately, and as soon as they do and look down there, they're going to see that entry into the public parking, which is directly behind the retail. So here's that plan. So York Street's on the right, Addison's on the left. There's our first floor public parking. And you can see those two entries off the alleys that I described that are right behind the block of the retail. Of course, the parking is behind the retail on York, and the parking is behind the residential on Addison. There's a third entry at Hahn Street. So we're leaving Hahn Street where it is until it hits the deck, and we're using that as the entry into the deck. So the basement parking that's under this and the parking on the ramp is reserved for the residents, and the first floor on-grade parking is for the public. Now, once somebody from the public gets out of their car, they can walk out of one of these entrances that they drove into, because there'll be a pedestrian exit at those places also, but they'll be encouraged to come out here and here into the Civic Plaza, because this wall is all open except that it has what's called a green wall installed in all the openings. And that means that there's vines and plantings growing up on a suspension system, so what it does is allows filtered light and air to come into the deck. Now that's important, because I think probably everybody in the room knows that public parking is successful when it's well lit, when somebody feels secure getting out of their car, and honestly, when there's a sense of psychological escape. So we've provided all those things in the public parking. There's no corridor or vestibule system that somehow you have to wind through to find your way out into the public space, but the way to get into the public parking and the way to get out is completely apparent and intuitive to the users. That's the basic mechanics of the site, except for the alleys. We'll conclude the basics. And these are blow-ups of the north and the south alley, but they tell us a couple of different things. First of all, loading and trash. On the right side, which is the Addison side, loading is accomplished on the alleys by lay-by spaces, which are adjacent also to inboard trash rooms. All of those dumpsters are being held within the building. That loading happens there on either side. just in front of where it says vehicular access, which are those entries into the parking structure. For the residents, it's on the upper left of the plan, which is in the north alley towards the residential side. The trash room, again, is handled inside the project. And there's a first floor trash room, and that's fed by 2 trash chutes from the residential units up above, one for trash, one for recycle. And there's that yard space for landscape. Now, I'd like to get around to the York Street side, the retail streetscape side, and try to describe how we got to the design that we have. Now, these are examples from 2 other communities. But the point is, when you have a tight sidewalk and you have a tight dimension from your storefront to the curb, no matter what you do to dress it up with streetscape, it's still an uncomfortable space. Start to add a lot of traffic going by, start to add a lot of people on the sidewalk, or start to add snow piles, and what you have is a space that really doesn't invite people to come back. This is better. There's a little bit more dimension here. This is 13 or so feet, and as an aside, this is probably the standard dimension that you have on York Street between 2nd and 3rd Street. This is what you kind of got going on. This is a different community, but this is what's going on York Street between 2nd and 3rd. About 13 feet. The street trees and street furniture are registered out towards the curb, right? So there's a little bit of sense of separation, a little bit more graciousness, a little bit more comfort. It's a little bit more inviting, and pedestrians are a little bit more urged to slow down and maybe even shop. But it's better yet if we can get some planters going, especially when the street starts getting wide and when it starts getting heavily traveled by traffic. A sense of separation from the street really helps, and planters give you a little bit of vertical hardscape and a little bit of low softscape to help with that separation. So here's what it does in a retail situation. You get that zone of appropriately sized sidewalk, you get a planter, and here it is in another condition, but an adequately sized sidewalk in a planter zone that's got planters, it's got the hardscape, benches, it's got your street lights, it's got your ash and trash and those sort of things all in that zone that gives you that psychological separation from the street. So that's what we've done. And when you look at our plan all along York Street, what we've got is that zone working. And those spaces, those planters are alternating with spaces. So what you have is overstory trees, you got the low planters, you got the bollards, street lights, benches, all in that zone. So when we show you these perspectives on the street, that's what we're all about. And we're creating that separation between the sidewalk or the promenade, if you will, and the street. So when we get to the center of our site, our streetscape bows in. Our planters intentionally are urging the user to get into that civic space, because what we're trying to do is design in every way possible to get users in there, to entice them to be in it, pass through it, to use it. And so our street bows in, and our streetscape turns around the corner of the retail and heads towards those pedestrian portals into the parking deck that I showed you before, all to entice those users to use the space. We don't want a dead space. We want every reason possible for them to come into it. This is an overhead plan with the 2 images, but what it does is it shows you the key dimensions here. At the point where the streetscape turns into the event lawn, we deepen up the sidewalk system to 20 feet from inside the property line, a couple extra feet beyond that to the curb, and about 78 feet from that property line from the right-of-way back to the body of the building. And you can see in either corner that center portion is recessed, so it's about 68 feet on either side of it behind the retail. I think I'm going backwards. Excuse me. Okay. Excuse me for going haywire on you. The event lawn's really important to us. It's the centerpiece of the whole thing. It's got our centerpiece for the architecture going. It's defined by the three sides of the buildings that you see, the retail, and the residential to the west. But there's subspaces within it that are defined by the site architecture as well. The pavilion, the planters. The planters have seating walls on them to invite seats. Of course, it's got the outdoor dining on either side of the retail. So on a sunny day, on a shady day, somebody can find a seat, eat lunch, hang out. We can, besides the events that can happen there, like art fairs or mini concerts or the like, but the intent is that somebody could find and open up their bag lunch on the grass on a nice day. Or there's a shady spot, or they find a sunny spot. But to find the maximum number of reasons possible to entice people into the space so that they're using it. And the space is scaled sufficiently and detailed sufficiently so that if it's mostly empty, it's still going to look appropriate, but if it's filled with a crowd, it's also going to be appropriate. We had to strike that balance so that when it's mostly empty, it doesn't seem like a wasteland. Here's a couple of montages. Here's York Street looking towards the site, towards the northwest, and here's the building. And of course, front and center in this particular perspective is the portal archway and the entry into the parking. Now looking towards the southwest from York Street, there's a Panera on the right, and then this is the way the project lays out from the northwest. You see the Civic Plaza and the centerpiece down on your left. Now what I want to do is get us going on a short video as if you're walking on the east side of York Street, looking at the project, heading south, so that you can see how it operates in the third dimension. Technology willing. Sorry for the delay. Here we go. So across the street, you start to see some of that site gear happening. And this is the scale of the street. And behind the pavilion there, you start to see the green wall. And those are those vertical plantings that are really strung across the openings into the parking structure. Under that tower element on the left, just to the left of that, is one of the two pedestrian portals, and you can see the outdoor dining, the bollards out towards the street, planters, street lights, benches, etc. Okay. Yeah, now we need to switch back quickly. Thanks for your patience. Over to Addison Street then. This is our neighbor, and this is that property that the project wraps around on the southwest corner of the property. They're two-story townhomes. They're 3 stories in the back. They're elevated about a third or a half of a level off of the street with the grade, as you can see, but they're set back about 38 feet from Addison. And this is a view of the streetscape on the west side of the street. Okay, so this is the neighborhood that we need to be sensitive to, and this is the kind of character that we have to be friendly to. So what we've done with the building at this point is, well, per the limitations, and appropriately so, the height of the building is limited to 3 stories. So right away, we're at about the total height of where those row homes are. But we've also, as you can see, pushed the project back from the sidewalk. Of course, the right-of-way line is up here about where the cursor is somewhere, so there's that same 38 feet going. And you'll see that, how that works in 3 dimensions. So what we're trying to do is make this as friendly to the residential neighborhood as we can, and we're trying to make a corridor building have the effect and the street presence of a 3-story row home building instead. Another thing that we did here is that we added first floor entry, excuse the bouncing mouse, first floor entries to the 4 units which face the street on the first floor. And we gave them front doors, sidewalks, wrought iron fences and yards, right, and a subordinate sidewalk to get you around. So the residential entry to the overall project is here from the street, but most of the users will be using the deck, and they'll enter that same lobby from the deck side of the building, enters into the same space. And here's a montage of views of that particular wing, but here's how the dimensions work out here. The 38 feet is to that front facade, somewhere in there, because that facade bounces around. The residential lobby works in the center, and those subordinate entries and yards work along in that fashion. The residential entry is that center pavilion, and it's modest, and it's downscaled so that it is friendly to the residential neighborhood. So we've got an elegant but subdued fabric canopy there, and we've got a low and a modest masonry ground sign there to announce where the front door is. And this is a view looking northeast, and you can see where it says existing Hahn Street there. That's the stub of Hahn Street that leads off-screen off to the right to the third entrance into the parking. But we have enough room there between the curb of existing Hahn Street and the building, again, to get a carriage walk for pedestrians, to get foundation plantings and overstory trees going. All right, here's what it looks like before we lost our leaves and before the snow came. This is looking the same way as that previous view was, and here it is plugged in. So we've set it back to be in that same plane, and the heights are working along pretty well. So we like to think that we've made this corridor residential building as much like a 3-story row home building as we possibly could have. Now here, looking from the other corner, there's the alley, the north alley of the property. There's the corner of the retail on the left, and there's those 2.5-story row homes existing on the right. And then here's how the project fits in. Another video time. So everybody count to 20. We want to do is we want to walk on, good for you. We want to walk on the other side of Addison Street going south and looking at the project as you go. Don't try this at home because you'll just trip over something on the sidewalk. But what it does, it starts to show you how the spaces work and how that entry really works and what kind of scale and character it has. It's soft and historic. It's rich and residential. This is meant as a transitional project. And the project has to function well on the commercial side. It has to function well on the residential neighborhood side. And so that's really the design challenge that we had to deal with. There's got to be a better way to do this, guys. A lot of the site architecture that we have going on here is on the roof. I told you about the vegetated roof over here on the 3-story portion that we just looked at, and that's up on the 3rd-story roof. But this portion is on the 1-story roof just over the public parking. And it's not only a vegetated roof that's a look-upon space, if you will, but it's an amenity space as well. It's a usable space. And here's the detail on it, and on the left are some of the images from Wheaton 121 for some of the amenities that were built there. And on this design, the light green color is the vegetated roof. We have ornamental trees and precast planters. We have a sun deck off of our community room. We have outdoor lounge seating under an arbor with a fire pit and grilling areas for the tenants. Bocce courts, Fido space. Now, last time I went through this, and I'm not going to belabor this with you again if you remember that I went through all these bullet points and made you suffer. But suffice to say that what we're doing is we are continuing to propose highly detailed, historic, and rich materials all the way around this building with one exception. We have some lightweight materials that are in that courtyard that I showed you, but none of them are going to be visible from the street. So all of this kind of detailing, the facade bounce, horizontal, vertical, the masonry, herringbone brick, the metal box bays, the bracketed roofs, all this architectural detailing and richness is being carried all the way around it, and I'll show you exactly where. All right, we're on the York Street retail. We're still yet proposing 100% cast stone facades, faux slate roof, bracketed traditional eaves and brackets and the like, and all of that architecture culminating around into our tower that is off-center on our civic space. So, where are all these materials? Well, everything on York Street is highly detailed masonry and stone, as we just looked at. All of the retail, all sides of it, all wrapping all the way around that way. Every bit of the alley side architecture, top to bottom. This is that 3-story component, although we didn't color the roof green like we should have. All of that, starting at this corner and going all the way around and wrapping down. All of the first floor as it comes in and hits that, and this facade as it comes in and hits the parking deck. All of the parking deck as it faces west. All of the 4-story element that is behind the townhome. So when we turn to our lighter weight material, it's going to be in a place like this. So that's basically 100%. Everything that you can see when you look in is being treated in the way that David asked us to. He said this was a masonry site. So I've told you a lot of bits and pieces. And I've told you about a lot of components, but the idea is that all of this stuff, the materials, the details, the architectural theming, the horizontal architecture, the landscape, the hardscape, all the things that make this thing go together, as well as the spaces that are designed, have to come up with an appropriate design for this place and at this time. And we're here to propose to you that this is the one. This is the right design for this site. This is the one that we asked David to be able to present. He could have told us, no, push that retail to within the 13, 15 feet of York Street. He says, then I'll get a couple extra 100 square feet of retail, or a couple thousand maybe. He could have said that, but he didn't. He could have said, carry all of that residential wing out to York Street on top of the retail, and I'll get a dozen more units. He didn't say that. He could have said, push the project out to Addison Street, and he didn't say that. And he could have said, squeeze or pinch the alleys in the area between the townhomes and the building more than you did, and he didn't say that. He could have said to us, we can't butter up the building with all of these rich materials. And I'm here to tell you, because I know about them and involved with some of them, there's rental properties going up and down the North Shore being proposed right now and approved, where the primary exterior building materials are metal siding and hardy and ephes. And David said no. He says, I'm not going to do that. So instead, over the course of all these rounds and the previous work that you're aware of that we're with our involvement on this site, we've carefully prepared and considered over a long period of time what's the most appropriate design and the right image for what Elmhurst seems to be all about. okay, with a richness and a softness and a historicity. And the project will become a standard for how to deal with transitional design between a commercial district and a residential district, and how to be friendly to both sides and not turn your back on either one. And finally, and you'll be relieved to hear I'm going to shut up now, but the project is going to stand the test of time. And that's important at any time, because what happens is that a project, although it might look neat now, has to be able to be revisited in 10 years. And somebody hopefully is not going to say, oh, that project was designed in 2013. Right? Oh, the materials are starting to look tired. Oh, the paint's starting to fade and things are starting to chip and it's just looking a little frayed around the edges. But instead, this project, with the way it's set up, both in its design, being of a traditional nature that points back to our recognizable architectural themes, and its material palette is going to be good the day it's built, and it's going to be good 10 years from now, and it's going to be good 30 years from now when people come up to visit it. And we know that because of the architectural monuments that we even have here in town. When they're built right, they last for 50, 75, 100 years. And there's no reason why this one shouldn't be able to do that. All right, I'm done. Thanks for your time.
Good evening. Sustainability is an important element of our design. While we touched on this briefly in the previous presentation, we wanted to take some time today to highlight some of the key components of our design. Morningside's development philosophy emphasizes sustainable design, construction, and operations. This results in buildings that are not only energy efficient, but utilize best practices that maximize resident satisfaction and minimize long-term impact on the environment. North District will be constructed in alignment with the National Green Building Standards, the foremost green rating system for residential construction in the country. These standards are used for rating new and remodeled single and multifamily buildings. It is the first and only such residential green rating system to have earned the approval of the American National Standards Institute. All of North District's kitchen appliances, washers and dryers, mechanical and electrical equipment will meet Energy Star standards. The plumbing fixtures will be water conserving and meet WaterSense standards of the EPA. The indoor parking garage's electrical design will provide empty circuits for future electric vehicle charging stations. As demand dictates, EV charging stations are installed and preferred parking is offered for EV and hybrid vehicles. Occupancy sensors are used in common areas to the extent allowed by code to minimize lighting an area when it's not in use. However, the best means of minimizing electrical lighting is through the use of daylighting. Generous window areas are incorporated into residence and common areas to reduce the electrical need. Moving from floor to floor is accomplished with machine roomless traction elevators. These elevators are far more energy efficient than the hydraulic or geared elevators of the past. As you have seen from the plans, North District design includes two large sections of green roofs. The green roofs reclaim habitat, reduce roof temperature, and reduce excess storm discharge. The green roofs also act to filter and detoxify stormwater by removing suspended pollutants. While a green roof is used over the entire second floor courtyard and third floor setback along Addison, elsewhere, Energy Star reflective roofing is used to reduce the property's heat island effect, a goal that the city is considering for some city-owned buildings. The building's thermally broken and insulated windows have a low E coating to reduce heat loss. The structural engineers and architects will specify crushed concrete as fill material under buildings, walkways, and paved areas. Coal fly ash and recycled crushed concrete aggregate will be used in concrete mix designs. Recycling by residents is always difficult in a multi-story building, as residents should not be transporting recyclables to the trash room in the elevator. Morningside solves that problem by installing 2 trash chutes at each location, one for trash, one for recycling. Those trash chutes empty into 2 separate containers on the ground floor. Trash compactors are then used to minimize material volume and transportation impacts. To encourage residents to conserve, apartments are individually metered for electricity, gas, and water. Studies demonstrate that when resources are individually metered, less of those resources are used. Maintaining indoor air quality is also a priority. Since the building envelope is so tightly insulated and sealed, large makeup air units on the roof are constantly supplying fresh conditioned air into the building corridors and common areas. Further, cabinetry is manufactured without adding urea formaldehyde. Low toxic adhesives and low VOC paints, among others, will be used throughout the project. The wood trim throughout the building is made from fast-growing trees or recycled content. The faux wood vinyl floors, which are in every residence, incorporate at least 50% recycled content. Native and drought-resistant plant materials will be used to minimize watering. Salt-resistant plants will be used in parking areas and parkways, and organic mulch and compost will be used in bedding areas and around trees. And as I mentioned, not only are we designing green, we're building green too. Waste from construction and demolition project is estimated by some sources to account for approximately 25 to 30% of total waste in the U.S. each year. Making the reuse of materials an important consideration and why we incorporate a construction and recycling program on our projects. The use of reusable concrete forms also reduces construction waste. Vinyl erosion control barriers around the site keep soils on site and minimize contamination of downstream watershed. Airborne dust is mitigated from the start of demolition through the building envelope. Advanced air sealing is carefully completed at joints and penetrations to provide tight and energy-efficient buildings. Construction materials are locally sourced to the greatest extent possible to minimize the transportation impact. Off-site manufactured materials such as precast concrete or the light gauge metal wall panels that make up the structure of the building are sourced from sites within 85 miles of the project. The final component of our program is operations. Morningside not only designs green, builds green, but we operate green. Once construction is complete, the building is turned over to our property management team. Each member of the team is trained to think green in every workday. Sustainable operations demand that our staff be fully trained in proper and efficient operation of mechanical and electrical equipment. But just as important as training our staff, residents are instructed in the operation of their programmable thermostats to reduce energy consumption. Use of energy-efficient LED and compact fluorescent lighting is also encouraged, and all common area fixtures use such bulbs. LED and CFL bulbs burn up to 80% less energy than incandescent counterparts and can last 25 times longer. The entire building will be designated as non-smoking, with a prohibition on smoking incorporated into every lease. Cleaning products are limited to those designated green and without toxins. Throughout the design, construction, and operation of the project, an accredited lead professional oversees Morningside's sustainability programs. I hope this gives you a flavor for how we approach sustainability. We don't just include sustainable elements, such as a green roof, because it's on a checklist. Our approach to sustainability is a philosophy that we hope results in a positive impact, not only for our residents, but for the community as a whole. I'm going to jump back a couple slides real quick. As Mark mentioned, our design incorporates a variety of pedestrian and bicycle-friendly amenities. We believe North District is an important element in extending the already excellent pedestrian experience into downtown further north. Pedestrian-friendly amenities, as Mark mentioned, such as benches, planter wall seating, LED bollard lights, and pedestrian-scale street lights will be placed in and around the civic plazas and along York and Addison. Further, public art and generous cafe seating for retail will help to add to the pedestrian experience. Our goal is to create a place for people to stop, eat, gather, and simply use as much as possible. But our design doesn't just stop at pedestrians. We have incorporated a multitude of bike-friendly features such as exterior bike racks, conveniently placed in and around the site, to bicycle storage for residents, and to the Divvy bike sharing system. For those not familiar with Divvy, Divvy is a bike sharing concept. Bike sharing stations are set up at convenient locations so that patrons can rent bicycles on an hourly, daily, or long-term basis. Currently, Divvy is only serving locations within the city of Chicago, but they are eager to expand into the suburbs, and we are in discussions with them about Elmhurst and other suburban downtown sites we have developed. Our goal is to create the best pedestrian and bike-friendly development in the area. And with that, I'll turn it over to John Zimmerman with Terra.
Good evening. My name is John Zimmerman, and I'm president of Terra Consulting Group. The Morningside Group has retained our company to make the preliminary evaluations of the stormwater infrastructure necessary for the North District development. Terra Consulting Group is a civil engineering consultancy that has been in business for 19 years. Our services are primarily focused on property redevelopment such as this one, and my colleague Mike Elliott and I are excited to talk to you about the civil engineering elements. When Morningside got us involved into the stormwater analysis, David Strasberg had two goals he wanted us to reach. First, he wanted this project to meet the requirements of the DuPage Countywide Stormwater and Floodplain Ordinance with respect to stormwater runoff volume and water quality. Second, he asked us to implement the latest technologies in stormwater management used today. Our design team, led by Mike Elliott, was successful in achieving both goals. This development will have an immediate impact on the surrounding area once the project is complete. Most of the stormwater that currently runs off the property will be detained on site until well after the storm event. Furthermore, the North District Stormwater Plan incorporates the latest sustainable infrastructure technology available today. Brian and Mark mentioned the green roofs, but there are also rain cisterns, permeable paver blocks, and a subterranean detention vault. I'm going to turn things over to Mike Elliott. We'll get into some of the specifics of the design. Mike is a senior project manager at Terra who directed the design analysis of North District. Mike has 18 years' experience in all aspects of civil engineering design for both public and private developments and is a lead accredited professional. One of Mike's recent projects won the American Society of Civil Engineers Sustainability Award for innovative use of technologies in stormwater management, and the project in question was a redevelopment of existing property in an urban area similar to this one. So with that, I give you Mike.
As Mike approaches, I'm going to give the Morningside team a time check. You're at 45 minutes. Thank you.
That'd be perfect. With the North District project comes the opportunity to reverse the negative impacts of the impervious parking and the buildings that are currently out in the site. The impervious nature of the downtown Elmhurst produces nearly the maximum amount of stormwater runoff possible during every event. The majority of the buildings in the area do not provide much in the way of detention or controlling release rate. The Hahn site's about 15% pervious, which is about primarily in the Hahn Street right-of-way, the grass islands that you would see out there. And the site currently provides little or really no detention or restriction of the rate and the volume of the stormwater discharging from the site. As noted by John, the North District will be designed to meet the full requirements of the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance for rainfalls all the way up to the 100-year design event. Essentially, the ordinance is set up to be restricted to a 0.1 CFS per acre. The project is approximately 3 acres. So you do the math, and it's about 0.3 CFS release rate. Now, currently in a typical storm event that would be like once a year event, 24-hour storm, you'd have about 8 CFS coming off this site. So we're restricting it down by like a factor of 26. So essentially, the smaller release rate, the larger the detention vault, as John mentioned, that we're proposing. The project would have about a 1.4 acre foot storage in an underground vault. The vaults have been used for many years, but with the modern methods provided for detention nowadays, we're proposing to do a concrete vault system somewhere within the footprint of the building. And they're also much easier now to maintain. The storm sewers, the inlets, the drain systems that you commonly find on every site is drawn into that vault to capture pretty much every inch of the footprint. And it's made for easy maintenance and whatnot. Be greatly reducing the flow rate from the development. So I would expect additional capacity would be available in the sewer within York and surrounding streets to help with the other developments that currently don't have detention. The North District goes beyond simply providing detention. It also features to reduce and reuse stormwater, especially collected from the roof areas, the yards, and the walkways. Stormwater improvements are achieved in a number of ways. Permeable brick pavers will be installed in various walkways around the perimeter of the project. Instead of just sheet draining the water to the public sewers, stormwater will be diverted into the narrow gaps and joints in the decorative brick pavers system. The paver systems are designed to draw water down into the sub-base of the structures and try to interact that with the subsoil and to get the absorption into the natural ground. The design intent is to promote infiltration into the subsoil. So excess water is slowly diverted through the underdrain pipes back into the vault if there is a larger storm event. Permeable pavers work great for pretty much all events, big and small. But the smaller rainfall events like the half inch, the one we frequently get, about 75% of all storms are just the smaller events. Those are typically called the first flush. The most pollutants that are concentrated in on a street are picked up on those small rain events, and pavers are a great way to treat that as a best management practice. As you're probably aware, the permeable pavers have become quite common and currently used over at Elmhurst in one of their parking lots at our Elmhurst College. The green roof systems will cover much of the elevated courtyard in the center, as was noted. The green roofs have proven to work well, absorbing smaller, frequent rainfall events while producing minimal runoff. The runoff is naturally reduced and reused by the plants making up the green roofs. Water is absorbed and retained in the soil strata, providing a built-in storage system. But during larger events, the green roofs initially slow down the water, but the overflow will be captured into the traditional vault that we would install on the site. During drought conditions, the typical plants, such as the sedums, will survive that and rebound once the rain returns. The North District will also include generous amounts of permeable landscaping or perimeter landscaping, as the previous mentioned. The landscape project will be irrigated in part by stormwater collected in cisterns. Generally, roof water is considered a clean source of runoff, with additional benefits of the pretreatment by the green roof. But the North District project will divert rainwater into cisterns as strategic locations along the building, and there's probably many creative design opportunities by the architect to create some creative ways to do that. The educational opportunities would also exist by having something of a feature similar to one shown in that slide, but done much more architecturally blended with the project. Okay. Yeah, and then essentially, we'll also, we're not going to show that slide then. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. Sorry to give you the bumps rush there. So thank you for selecting Morningside as a finalist. The first HAN RFP was issued in 2006, and things have changed a lot since Morningside first began working on that request. The world went through the global financial crisis, and every segment of the real estate market was dislocated. The for-sale housing market completely tanked. Banks stopped lending money for new real estate development. Many developers defaulted on their loans and gave property back to their lenders. Fast forward to today, the economy's recovering. The for-sale residential real estate market is improving, though it's still well below its highs. Bankers are actually calling me and asking if I need money for development. And 5 credible developers responded to your request for proposals. So things are looking up. For all of us personally, things have changed also. In 2006, Melissa, Brian, and I were unmarried and without any children. Fast forward to today, 2013, we're all married. And with our respective spouses, we have over 7 children, and we have exactly 7 children, so a lot's changed personally too. But one thing hasn't changed since 2006, and that's the fact that we really, really want to do this project, and that's why we keep coming back. We are absolutely confident that not only do we have a great building that meshes perfectly with the character of the community, but Morningside is best positioned to start this project and quickly finish it. And the quicker the work starts, the quicker the property can start generating return for the city. I want you to keep in mind a few things about our company. We're a boutique firm. We specialize in exactly this kind of suburban infill projects. We are not generalists, we are specialists in mixed use and multifamily. We don't work across the country. We are focused on the suburbs, in Chicago, and in the Midwest. Decisions aren't made in a distant home office where the HAN development is just a project number. I make decisions right here, and my reputation is at stake with every decision. We are not dictated to by third-party investors. We invest our own capital that we control. This year is Morningside's 20th anniversary, and through those years, we focused exclusively on mixed-use and multifamily development. And through this history, we've never defaulted on a loan, never given back a property, and never had a property taken from us. Our track record with lenders is spotless and the envy of our competition. As I discussed during our last presentation in September, Morningside is currently completing a 306-unit ultra-luxury building in downtown Wheaton. And by January, that project should be wrapping up construction and beginning its lease up. The outstanding team that we have at Wheaton 121 is here tonight, and I would like them to all stand up so I can recognize them. These are people that we have that are coming off the Wheaton 121 project. They're available immediately once the project's complete to start this project and quickly finish it. Thank you. Morningside hasn't been on the sidelines since the global financial crisis. We completed 3 developments since 2010. We're staffed up and ready to go on HAN. And Morningside's advantages are not just limited to the fact that we can start quickly. We know Elmhurst, and we know this site inside and out. We've studied this property for years. There won't be any surprises, and we'll hit the ground running. And as I promised in September, Morningside will always operate with the best interests of Elmhurst as a priority. I think all of you know, and I mentioned previously, that Melissa and I invested months working on the site's environmental challenges, and we understand exactly what's required to obtain a no further remediation letter from the IEPA. Mark Sella, our retail partner, has done more retail transactions in downtown Elmhurst than anyone else, bar none. And while his firm doesn't employ dozens of leasing brokers, he knows those national tenants that would be interested, and he also knows the locals that constitute the best long-term operators for our retail space. My final thoughts. Our goal was to create a landmark building, and a building that would mesh with the character of Elmhurst and be the pride of generations of residents. We cut no corners with our design, as Mark discussed in detail. Our building is stone and brick masonry, with a couple exceptions that Mark pointed out. We're using a palette of rich materials, stone, brick, and metal, with even richer detailing. Our goal was to maximize the aesthetics of the building and not the density. The mass of our building is set back from York and from Addison, and the Addison elevation is limited to 3 stories in both our 4-story version and 6-story version of our plan. We've also maximized green space to the greatest extent possible. Our top quality project stands in stark contrast to the 1990s corporate look that has been replicated ad nauseum in suburban downtowns throughout Chicago. Our goal was a custom design landmark with a strong sense of history. Our building looks better the closer you get to it, not so with those 1990s corporate design buildings that you're probably familiar with. So when you make a decision, please incorporate everything that we're offering: design, materials, stormwater, and sustainability into your decision. So let me formally request the opportunity to build North District. The entire Morningside team is anxious to get started. Thank you for listening, and what little remaining time we have, I can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Strasburg, and the entire team. You have 1 minute. Is there? That's pretty good. Is there any? Alderman Gutenkopf, do you have a quick question?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, first I'd like to say that I do appreciate your presentation, and I am feeling like I have many questions and not any time in which to ask them of you directly, and I do think that that's unfortunate, because I think it's always an opportunity for the residents who are going to be living with this property and all of the council members, that it's always advantageous for us to hear your answers rather than follow-ups in writing. So I do very much appreciate your presentation, but I'm hoping that we can indulge, Mr. Mayor, the council a little bit longer if the questions go beyond the 30 seconds that are left.
Actually, we won't.
Well, and I do think that this is something that is unfortunate, but let me ask my first short question. What sorts of building code variances are you expecting to be asking for, given the sort of construction that you've proposed today?
We outlined in our written materials that we will be building according to the 2012 International Building Code. And I recognize that Elmhurst currently has some exceptions to that code. We would ask that those exceptions be waived, and however, we would agree in advance to only building with non-combustible materials. We're also assuming that the Illinois Plumbing Code and the Illinois Electrical Code as written would apply, and the some of the existing local amendments to that code be waived.
Could you give an example of one of those exceptions that you'd be looking for us to waive? Yeah.
Mr. Strasburg, I'd ask you to just wrap it up with this last answer.
Okay. One example would be armored cable, the use of armored cable in lieu of conduit. Armored cable provides all the benefits of conduit at a significantly reduced price, and we think it's an equal quality and provides an opportunity to build a more economical product.
Okay, very good. I'd like to thank the Morningside team for their hard work, their follow-up as a finalist, and their presentation. We will take a 10-minute break and allow Lincoln to set up. Thank you. Yeah, 4 pretzels.
I'm not a huge fan either. They were 50 cents, and I only had 50 cents. I don't hate them.
I mean, I hope they blow up.
I wouldn't be eating
And they have a good chance of doing it. Seriously.
World War Z.
That's my grandson.
Brad Pitt.
Who's driven me crazy for the last almost 18 years. Until he lives on pretzels. So I decided
Or do you eat them?
to get a pretzel. Ever again.
All right,
Now that I know this about you, I won't ever.
Same thing, right? I've got powers. You can almost have it.
Yeah.
I've got a cord. Not having too much time to ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
I know, I'm trying.
Set that up. Glad you reminded me.
All of this stuff is on the stick immediately.
We'll talk about this. What's that?
Oh, okay. I'll have that in here. Just the last, all the way up there. It's right up.
Oops.
okay. We're ready to go? Mr. Byrne, you ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've got 9:28. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Before we begin, I want to make one statement to you, or let you know something that's could affect the future. We were approached recently by a specialty grocer. They were referred to us through the city, and they asked to be a part of this development. We met with that grocer. We also understand they met with other competitors. I believe there were 2 others at the time. We sat down and met with them on a couple of occasions. We went over what their requirements were. We didn't feel like it was possible to produce a viable plan that would meet the same economic criteria as the presentation we gave you 60 days ago and the presentation we're going to give you tonight. So rather than try to develop a plan, which we actually brought some sketches in case somebody was curious about this, but rather than try to change the orientation of the development or the presentation, we elected to put that to the side and bring it back to the council when we are chosen. And if the council wants to explore that option and explore the economics, then we're prepared to chuck everything that we show you tonight and start over. But for purposes of this presentation, what we're going to do tonight is stick with what we showed you 60 days ago and do a more refined version of that, and then come back at a later date if it is deemed appropriate by the council. So we just want to make that statement because we know that this grocer did come to the city before they came to us and did inquire as to the potential of being involved in this deal, but it was after the original presentation was made, so we didn't feel it was appropriate to go too far down that road, which we did not. But we're certainly willing to do that should the council find that to be something that they would be interested in exploring greater. So we make that statement for you. Also, tonight's presentation is designed to be a back and forth discussion. So we are going to, we have designed this to be something that is inclusive of the council as we go through. So questions, comments, whatever you have as we're going along, we welcome those, as opposed to a presentation or a lecture by us and a Q&A after. We want to take that as we come all the way through the process. So feel free to interrupt us as we go down through the presentation. If we go through this presentation with no questions, I'll be up here for 25 or 30 minutes, and then we'll have questions. But if you have questions, I want to let you understand how much time we have available for that. So feel free to ask questions and move forward.
Before you move forward, sir, I was
Now,
just
don't
making-
interrupt me.
I was just making sure that we allowed for this to happen as a back and forth exchange, or did we stipulate in some sense that it has to be at the end?
No, the applicants were given an hour. How they choose to spend that hour, it's up to them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, sir.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so to begin our presentation, first of all, we want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to come back in here tonight and present to you our plan and our refinements to the plan and try to answer additional questions related to our plan. We're very honored to do this. We know this is a big deal for Elmhurst, and what we're trying to tell you is we are honored to be here, and we want to be part of this process with you. So we want to work with you. We're committed to this plan and this vision for Elmhurst, and we think it's imperative that we show you that we are prepared to work with you to get to something that the city wants to have. What we've done is revise and improve the design and the plans that we showed you previously based on what comments we did get feedback on and based on our own experience. We think we know what it takes to develop a successful project, and we've maintained and enhanced our original vision to you. So as we move forward, the agenda tonight, which we have copies already out? Perfect, we're so efficient. In front of you is this agenda, which we have already given you the presentation outline, but we're going to walk through these different aspects of the design: the architecture, the amenities, the open space, the site layout and land use and parking solutions, consistency with the downtown plan, sustainability, our qualifications and experience, and the benefits to the community, and then we have closing comments. You can kind of keep track of where we are based on the time and what's going on, and if that helps you understand how much time is left versus where we are in the agenda, that's why we have that in front of you. So as we move forward, that should help you, I hope. So to begin with, this was the original design that we showed you 60 days ago. And obviously at that time what we told you is that this was to give you an idea of massing, building heights, scale, and how the building would start to look on the York Street side. What we've done is enhance the architecture and start working on refining that original plan. So we've worked on creating elements up at the roof level, visual appearances to help create landmarks for the development. We've changed, varied our parapet heights as we move across the front of the building, developed different massings. We've curved the front of the building. We've curved the retail portions of the building. We've worked on our definition and detailing of the facade of the building. We've worked on brick colors and materials and other elements of the design, created bay windows and such. We've added more seating in the plaza areas. and generally just worked on the facades and tried to enhance and update the original design. And we've added some additional banding, ornamental areas on the building, updated the entry to the residential portion of the building. This was the original view of the plaza area. And again, just the massing and the general concept. We've spent a little more time to try and enhance that and work on some of the things that are most important, we think. We've added recessed balconies. We've curved the front of the building, created some bays that protrude out on the front. Again, varied heights of parapets to create interest. An entry feature for the residential portion. Created some water features, linear water features in the middle of the plaza. Worked on enhancing paving materials. Again, seating areas in the area, some cupolas and little arbors out on the plaza area, and curved the retail facade to more embrace the plaza and make the plaza and the retail integral components to each other. On the Addison Street side, I don't think we showed you any real definition on that side the last time we were in here. So we've developed more character for the Addison Street side in keeping with a residential character. We've done extensive definition to the rooftop decks and how they would work, and the potential for quiet seating areas and discussion areas versus more active areas around the pool for more social gathering areas, and extensively worked on landscaping and enhancements to that area. One major feature that we've done is previously we did not have an entrance off of Addison Street. We have now moved the building further away from the townhomes on Addison Street and created an entry point that allows the townhomes to retain the access off of the existing Hahn Street right-of-way that they have currently. Our previous plan had that off of the alley to the south. So we've put that access point back in and moved our building away from the townhomes. We've also created more green space. We've moved the building back away from Addison Street more, and we've moved the building away from the townhomes on the back side of the townhomes to create more of a landscape buffer. This was the original design and layout of the plaza on York Street, which was obviously at that point more of a concept than anything else. And you can see that we had straight line retail frontages, and the idea of what we wanted to go without a lot of development of that. We've now more fully formed the concept of the plaza. We've brought the retail. We've curved it out to try and embrace the plaza and make it more an integral part to connect to the building itself. We've worked on our landscaping as well as our paving areas and our accent points, created arbors and seating areas out here, and generally tried to more well define what the plaza itself is and create clear access points into the parking structure that take people that are parking here for retail uses back out to the plaza and get them out in front of the retail users. The original open space plan that we presented is this one, where you can see that at that time we clearly had the plaza. We had a little bit of roof area on the second floor overlooking the plaza that was is landscape roof area, and then we had what are effectively three different roof areas of open space, but distinctly separate from each other in the original plan on the roof above the garage. And what we've done is take this area of the building, we've pulled it back, we've opened the entire roof area up more and made it all linked together to create two distinctly different areas, one for more what I call quiet gathering area and one for more of a social area. Again, we've opened up let me go back one here. I'm not good at this. Here we go. You can see this is the line of the building that we had before. We had no access point off of Addison Street to the townhomes. We had the townhomes were accessed from this south alley to get to their driveway. So we've pulled that back significantly, created a drive lane that's basically left their access point the same. It does also create an extra residential-only access point for our residents off of this same access point. So those are the main differences. We've moved the building off of Addison Street more than we had it before and created a larger green space buffer area, and we've moved the building further away from the townhomes on the backside and again created a larger green space and buffer area to retain the existing trees that are there, which at this point we're not sure whether those are on the townhome land or whether they're on our land, but either way we're retaining that and creating an additional green space buffer. Overall, this additional green space creates about 55% of the site area, including the roofs, the green roofs. We have about 55% of the area as open space, and this should significantly help us capture and clean runoff prior to getting into the city's stormwater system. The original site layout had parking on the at grade and below grade, retail on the front of the building out on York Street with the open public plaza, no access point off of Hahn. The new site layout has the access point off of Hahn now, building pulled further away from the townhomes, and a redesigned parking structure. So what we've done is actually accomplish the ability to put more cars. We've added cars here. We have 415 cars in this structure. The last time we were here, we had 403. So we've added a dozen cars in a significantly smaller square footage. So we think that's a big plus with the efficiency of the design that we've come up with. And again, the retail areas have been redesigned and more incorporated to come into and be a part of the plaza area. We've retained the 118 commercial retail parking spaces in the garage that we had before, but we've increased the amount of residential parking. So we now are up to a ratio of almost 1.4 cars per unit.
May I interrupt for a second?
Yes, sir.
You made comments already about how you pulled back off of Addison, which is a good thing. You added access to the neighboring townhomes off of Addison as well. But from a statistical standpoint, you're adding parking spaces to your original proposal. You're not losing any apartmental units. You're keeping or increasing maybe even the retail space. So what gives? How can you take away and add a little bit more green space or entranceways, but not lose any of those other components or reduce any of those other components?
Well, this is the original plan.
Yes, sir.
This, I'm got to do this very slowly. That's the original plan. This is the new plan. What we've done is make primarily what we've done is make the parking much more efficient than what it was presented to you in this plan. That parking is not as efficient as this parking. So we've done several iterations of the parking studies to come up with a more efficient garage. So we're building less volume and accomplishing the same amount of usability in less volume that we were building. So it's really just the time to spend to work and refine the plan that we had. We've reconfigured the retail a little bit, which allowed us to, we actually had deeper retail in the, hold on, I'm going the wrong way. There we go. This retail was 60 feet deep. I think at this point, we're now 50 feet deep. We have a little bit shallower depth to the retail. Now, we curved it out a little bit to work with what we wanted to do and accomplish with the plaza. So it's a combination of things that we did that allowed us to put more in less.
Did the proposal lose plaza space then?
No, I think our total open space increased with this plan.
Open space, which is different than just the plaza space, though. I was referring to specifically the plaza.
The plaza is about the same square footage as what it was before. Okay. It's just in a different configuration.
Thank you.
Slightly different configuration. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on. Consistency with the downtown plan. To quote from your downtown plan guideline and the RFP that was originally submitted, new construction should respect the existing scale of downtown. 2 to 4 story buildings should continue to dominate. Taller buildings may be appropriate adjacent to major intersections, and new 1-story buildings are too small to maintain the urban character and street wall effect and should be discouraged within the downtown. So what we've tried to do is meet those specifics of the downtown plan. We have a 4-story structure with ground floor retail that comes out and meets the York Road street frontage. So we're pulling the building at both ends out to the street frontage to try to maintain that presence on York Road and create the effect of a building line along York Road, with the building embracing the plaza in the middle. We've retained the ground floor retail across the entire York Road frontage, with the exception of where we enter the residential portion of the building. We have 4 stories of structure out at the York Road frontage. We step that back to a 5-story level as we move away from York Road. So that was what we felt was an important component of trying to meet and maintain the downtown plan. We have the parking access off York Road. There's 2 points, one here and one at an exactly opposite point off the north alley for the parking for the retail and residential access in both locations. And basically, we've tried to create a more iconic architecture that will draw people both from the south up to the development and from North Avenue, which is clearly visible from the opposite direction from North Avenue, which will have a significant architectural character to draw people up to the structure and basically to see what's there and what this is about. It's a gateway to downtown and from both directions. It's something that draws people further north from the south, and it's what draws people into downtown from North Avenue. The pedestrian-oriented plan, we've tried to link everything. We have a link to the walkway that was an integral part of the original design of the bank building in the senior housing area. So we've tried to link into that through the back rear exits, if you will, of the residential portion of the building. And of course, we've got residential access for residents only onto Addison Street. And of course, we have the access and the linkages along York Road to draw people up to the retail component of the building. We've increased, as I said, the buffering and the green space along the west property lines. And we've slightly reduced our total FAR. This building footprint, again, we've refined the building itself. So we have less volume in the building, which primarily means that we've gotten more efficient with our non-rentable areas of the building. And we are at an FAR of approximately 2.5 versus the maximum allowable under city codes of a 4.0. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question while you have this slide up? It looks like you have some trees along the alley to the north and to the south.
Yes.
Are those trees part of the site, or is that landscaping that you'd envision on the adjacent properties?
Those are architectural license to make the plan look really good. The alley itself, the trees on the south are in the right-of-way of the existing alley immediately on the property line to the Shell station, where there's a heavy barricade, a car barrier right now. We want to try and see if we can fit in some trees on that south edge of the alley itself at that location. Up on the north side, those are specifically to the east end. There's a couple of pods on the CVS Panera property, which are just concrete medians at this point. We'd like to try and put some trees in those locations, and the rest of it is going to be up to how we work that out with the owners to the north. Obviously, both sides need that alley for access, so that has to be maintained. We'd like to see some way to put landscaping in over there at our expense, but it's going to be on either the alley, which is the city public right-of-way land, or work with them to update the backside of their building, which is fairly ugly right now.
Alderman Gutenkauf, you have a question?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
as long as we're talking about downtown plan and municipal codes, I'll ask you a question I asked to the last group. What sorts of building code variances are you contemplating seeking for this project?
Well, the way it was, I'll tell you what we have in is we are meeting the, is it 2012 IBC without amendments. You currently are under a building code with amendments, but not the 2012. I believe the 2012 is in consideration, is what I understand, for adoption. And but we don't know what those amendments, if any, there are going to be. So we are to the 2012 IBC without amendments.
Thank you.
Okay. Continue.
Where was I? Okay, consistency. All right, that's everything that we have on the moment on consistency. Sustainability. This is what we showed you last time, and we talked about the thermal envelopes, the water management features, recycled materials, green roofs, solar features. All of that still applies. It is our intent to seek LEED certification on this building. We will, of course, have all the adaptable and accessible features that are generally required and needed in developments of this type. We will have energy efficient design. We will use daylighting. We'll use LED fixtures. We'll have occupancy sensors for our lighting. Control lighting, outside lighting to not spill over the property line. Energy Star appliances. Low maintenance landscape materials, irrigation with gray water, green roofs, all of the typical things that you would expect in a sustainable design. It will start with the original design and will become a part of the entire development as we move forward and as we develop all of the features that will be done with that in mind. We will be reducing the impervious material, impervious surface area that exists on the site now, so that will reduce our runoff. We're increasing significantly the green area, plus with the grade level open space and the green roofs that we have on the structure. We'll have quite a bit of permeable material and landscaping across the entire project. We'll be using permeable paving wherever appropriate and where we can. We've added green space, and we're going to be using best management practices for stormwater. which should help improve the water quality before the water leaves our site. And we will restrict the rate at which the water leaves our site, thus helping to control stormwater in peak rain sessions, which should help to some degree the stormwater in the rest of the village. The more we can restrict it here and control it and contain it and let it out on a slower pace, the more that helps the situation that exists downstream in Elmhurst today. Other sustainable concepts. Obviously, we're going to have bike storage for our residents. We're going to have public bicycle parking areas either in the garage or out in the plaza area. Interior to the project, we'll be using Energy Star appliances, high efficiency HVAC systems, efficient light fixtures, recyclable products, low flow water fixtures, daylighting controls, stormwater retention, and electric charging stations. All the things that you would think of when you think of sustainability, we'll be trying to put into this project. A little bit about our company that I will just remind you of. We're almost 50 years old. We're very close to our 50th birthday. We've been around a long time. We're one of the largest private rental developers in the country. We've developed over 200,000 units. We have great relationships with equity partners and financing sources. We manage a lot of stuff. We have a history and a track record that is significantly larger than our competitors. We've been here a very long time. This is what we do. This is our specialty, and we think nobody does it better than we do. We have all of the real estate disciplines that are needed to pull off this development. We have a lot of locations around the country. This location in our regional home office in the Midwest is based 10 minutes away in Oak Brook and has been for over 25 years. And we know a lot of people. We can get this deal financed. So some of the detailed specifics there. We've developed in a lot of the western suburbs, number one. There's a lot of communities here in the Chicagoland area where we have done developments. As I said before, we're the largest private luxury rental developer in the country with over 200,000 units under our belt. That's $12 billion in development, and we're currently managing 140,000 units in 500 communities across the country. In the Midwest, this office, which I run, we've developed over 7,000 units in 22 communities, which is $700 million of development. We currently manage over 10,000 units in the Midwest region, and that's in 37 communities, and we've been here, as I said, over 25 years. Chicago area, just in the Chicagoland area, we've developed over 3,600 units in 10 different communities, which is $450 million of development, and we currently manage in the Chicagoland area 5,000 plus units in over 20 communities. That's a significant presence in the Chicagoland market and in the western suburbs, and we think that is something that makes us one of the most qualified people to be here for the long term. We're vertically integrated. We have in-house all the resources that we need to produce this development. We have the ability to finance this project. We understand the industry. We've done it for almost 50 years. We have a very long history of sponsorship with all kinds of equity and financing sources. We have very large interest from multiple equity sources. As I said the last time I was up here, AIG is specifically committed to do this deal with us, but we have others interested in doing it also. And we have large interest from lending institutions as was submitted to you in our financing packages. So we think we have the capability to pull this off. On the property management side, which we think is a significant piece of the puzzle to this deal, we're the third largest management company in the country, the largest privately held management company in the country. For many institutional investors, we're the go-to company. We're the people they call when they need a manager. They will pick up the phone and call us because they understand that we know the business and we know what we're doing. We have a regional team headed up by me here in Oak Brook, so if I don't get stuck at the pedestrian crossing on the Prairie Path, I can be here in 12 minutes from my office. We have local knowledge. I know, that was a dig, I had to say that, but we got local knowledge, but we've got the national expertise and the resources to back it up. So we have what it takes to get this deal done. We showed you this slide last time. We have good experience in the submarkets in the western suburbs. We understand who the renter profile is. We understand who the local employers are, where we're going to target our tenant base. We know what that demographic looks like and who's going to likely be here. They're going to be 25 to 45 years old. They're going to make, on average, $85,000 a year. They're going to be single, young professionals, or empty nesters. They're going to like walkable neighborhoods, which Elmhurst very much meets that criteria. They like to socialize locally, which means they're going to spend money in the community. And for those that are married, they'll be dual working households, so they want downtown access and suburban access. So the benefits of a manager and developer with a long history and track record in this community: we know that there's a limited supply of high-end rental in the Elmhurst area, and there's a demand for it. We will attract residents looking for urban in a suburban location. The demographic will primarily work in the Oak Brook I-88 corridor. The renter profile will frequent your downtown shops and restaurants, which helps add to your economic base. And we think we can produce a superior option for people who simply don't want to own or are not in a position to own. And another important point is we have a very stringent application criteria. So the residents that we put in this community aren't going to be people that are going to be deadbeats and going to be problems. We know how to qualify people before they move into our communities. Some of the economic benefits to the community: we're proposing to pay $2.5 million for the land. We're proposing to pay over $400,000 in city fees, which I'll take a discount if you'll give it to me. Retail sales tax, using your tax numbers actually, is $1.6 million over the 20-year period, $83,000 a year. Property tax, using your numbers, is $15 million over 20 years. By our calculations of what we projected the taxes to be, that number would be more like $13 million or $13.5 million. But we're using your tax numbers that you had requested we use. Benefits to the city over 20 years are over $19 million. Positive impact on the schools. On average, we will generate an extra $150,000 to $170,000 per year above and beyond what we would generate in students. So on a conservative basis, we're saying we would generate 20 students, and by conservative I mean we think that number is double what we will generate. We think we'll generate 8 to 10 students. We're using 20, and if we say we generate 20 students, we still are a positive impact to the school district to the tune of over $3 million over a 20-year period, and that's about $150,000 a year over a 20-year period.
Sir, is that using District 205 statistics for how much they spend per student?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Using the district's cost and offsetting it against the taxes we're paying and above.
Generating
What they get above what they would pay to educate the kids we generate.
And that's based on their numbers this
Based
year,
on
the
their
most
their
recent?
cost numbers, that's correct.
Thank you.
I hope those are the right numbers to use. That's what we did, though.
I hope so, too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, why should you pick us? You should pick us because this is what we do. 5 years ago, this project was before you, and we did not pursue it. And the reason we did not pursue it is because we are a luxury rental developer, manager, owner. And what we did not do at that time is come up here and say, we're going to be a condo developer because that's what you wanted. And we looked at this proposal 5 years ago. We've looked at previous proposals in downtown. We actually tried to pursue the old Fifth Third Bank site. We didn't get it because we would not come in here and say we would build for sale property, because that's not what we do. And we did not get the pick on that from the seller at that time, and we didn't get through this process. On this process, 5 years ago, we knew that at that time the city wanted for sale housing. We knew that we didn't have a chance presenting rental, to be honest with you. The market was overheated. It was everybody and their brother was out there building for sale product. We didn't take that bait. Today we are here because we've done this for 50 years. We know what we're doing. We are the best managers in the country. We are the best managers in the Midwest. We are the best managers in Chicago. Nobody has the track record we have. Nobody can touch us. We manage more properties than anybody else has developed in the Midwest and in the Chicagoland area. We're the people to get this job done for you. That's our presentation. Thank you. Question?
Thank you.
We
Time
got
check.
20 minutes.
Got about 20 minutes. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. So we've heard all about why Elmhurst should choose you. My question's kind of a flip on that. I'd like you to tell me a little bit about what it is about Elmhurst that you find attractive and why you believe our town is the right place for your project.
I'm buying time here. Actually, I'm not buying time. I think Elmhurst is a great town. I did not grow up in Chicagoland, but I've lived in Chicagoland for 23 years. And I've lived in Elmhurst for 15 years. So when I moved here 15 years ago, your downtown was different. It's changed. But the community really has not. The community is just a great community. We love it here. Our kids were born here. They've grown up here. Downtown, I said this back when you did the Fifth Third Bank site. You need density in downtown Elmhurst. Density drives successful businesses. You've got the genesis, and you've done a very good job of bringing in retail users and been successful with that. And over this period of time, you've done a good job of creating opportunities and to bring people in here. But you need a little bit of a kickstart to get this north end of downtown working. Downtown right now effectively stops at Francesca's. The guy selling cigars would say it stops where he does, but the stretch north of Francesca's up to this site is very barren. Not a lot going on. You need some activity up there. You need to bring people into downtown, and I think the number one way to do that is to put residents in downtown. Now, it's a foreign concept for the people that grew up in Elmhurst, were born here, raised here, went to school here, and still live here now, and I know a lot of those people. But, you know, you cannot stay static, and I think Elmhurst, it's time. It's time for Elmhurst to get a little more life, a little more vitality, a little more youth into the downtown area, and this is a seed for people that will live here and then move out of this community to buy homes, and the best place, one of the best places in the western suburbs to live and own a home is in Elmhurst. And the large majority of our people that move out of here are going to move for one of two reasons. They're going to buy a home, or they're going to have a job transfer and leave the area. So what we can provide is a very good base of residents whose next step, when it's time to buy a home, they're going to move out and they're going to buy a home right here because this is a great town. And I think it's got a lot going for it, and that's where I've always wanted to see more residential in downtown Elmhurst, and I know that there's people that think, you know, we don't want density, but it's very hard to maintain successful retail businesses without traffic. And Elmhurst's downtown has a unique setup and a unique situation, and I think additional residential will bring that in here. And I firmly believe that rental property in downtown Elmhurst is one of the things that's lacking. It brings new life, young blood into town. And not everybody's ready for owning, whether it's a condo or a house. That's just not the right thing for everybody.
Alderman Graham.
Thank you. In regards to density, your proposal initially was the highest in density, and out of the remaining two, it is still to this point. I personally have concerns with the amount of density that is being proposed. I don't disagree with your statements of needing foot traffic, needing people in our downtown area, generate foot traffic, generate retail sales. My concern is 216 residential units is significant. I would say, I forgot the numbers of the other applicant, but probably about 80, 90 plus units above the other applicant, somewhere around that range. Tie that to, and I appreciate the traffic study, which in your proposal is towards the back, since the numbering, I think, starts over. I can't tell you what page it's on exactly.
Okay.
But it seems to me the assumptions that are being made is that there'll be very low in and out traffic. Out of the 216 units, it says weekday morning peak would be 22 in and 88 out. Weekday evening, 88 in, 48 out. So about, not even 50% on any of these peak time frames. I guess where are those, and I do understand it references ITE land use code, which doesn't mean much to me, but where do those numbers come from? Because I foresee in and out traffic being significant on a 216 unit building in this area, right off of North Avenue, and then you add complexity with loading, retail loading, and any residential loading, which is, I don't know, 20, 30 feet off of York Road in both residential as well as retail. So have you guys, at least at this point, found any concerns of the amount of traffic and congestion in this area? And why 216? Why not anything lower? Was it more purely finances, or is there anything else that weighed in?
You've got a lot of questions in there.
I did, yes.
So help me
Been waiting all
remember
evening
them.
for the
Yeah,
next
I'm sorry. You were supposed to interrupt me. Be early. Traffic. Everybody is surprised when they get traffic studies. I'm not a traffic engineer, so I won't pretend to be able to give you the specifics of how those numbers are derived. But what I can tell you is, and I didn't think about having Louie come in here tonight, but everybody's surprised when they see traffic numbers, and they think, pick the number, 200 units, how come I only see 88 outbounds? You got to look at travel habits, and everybody thinks, well, I get up and go to work at 8 a.m. in the morning, why doesn't everybody else? And that's just the way it is. During the peak traffic period, there's people that leave before, there's people that leave after, there's people that don't drive, they walk, which is a big factor here in downtown Elmhurst because we think we're going to get a lot of people walking to the train. So the traffic counts, I'd be happy to get you the information that backs up those counts and how that is assessed or developed, but it is based on large amounts of traffic information that have been assembled over many years. It's not for us. These are counts that are developed based on what they know the traffic habits of people in this kind of a development to be. So the best answer I can give you is I'll be happy to follow up with you with the traffic engineer on how those numbers are developed. But the facts are, historically, that's what it generates. That's what 200 plus units generates during the peak travel periods. So it's just a matter of what happens. Well, Bruce has been trying to get me to allow him to work from home. So he wants me to tell you it's a lot of work at home, too. Okay. He's not getting that deal, though. That's true. We do have a lot of people that work from home, but I don't know that how much of that percentage goes into these traffic studies and how that's put together. You know, that's really a third-party deal, but these guys are very well respected in the traffic engineering world. We just need to get you more information on that, honestly, relative to that. But that wasn't some of your main points. So what else did I forget?
Number of units, pretty much.
Oh, number of units. That's hugely important. We've not changed that. I would like to have more, to be honest with you. So I could add some. We could do 6 floors. In fact, I've got a plan I can show you for 6 levels.
I personally don't want to see that one.
I can show you, though, if you want me to. Okay. That goes to 2 things. Size of the deal, which is typically unit count, and management, which is related to unit count and size of the deal. What we develop and what we specialize in are deals that institutional investors want to own and they look for as investment vehicles. You know, when you talk 200 plus units, to have a significant difference, for instance, you used, I think, said 80 units greater than the next guy. So that's a big number. 80 units is a big number. And I will tell you that if you knock 80 units off of this deal, I don't think you should do a rental development. Rental developments operate based on efficiencies. If you want a deal that is run with a full staff of management people, leasing people dedicated to this deal, service technicians dedicated to this deal. These guys aren't running around in a pickup truck going to 6 different properties, and this isn't a mom and pop operation. You have to have efficiencies in operation. And when you develop rental properties at 130 units, you cannot manage and staff that property in a manner that will, A, produce long-term a successful deal that can have money reinvested back into it, because you're shaving on the edges to try and match your income to your expenses and create a profit. And the logistics of that do not work. Smaller rental deals are suited to smaller owners with a number of assets where they run around and work several of them to try to get the efficiencies out of their personnel. That's fine for certain people. But if Elmhurst wants something that is going to bring high-quality, high-grade investors into the deal for the long term and keep this property in a high degree of upkeep and maintenance and continue to appeal to the renter profile that you want, you need to provide services. And to do that, you need to be on site, you need to be responsive on a very short-term basis. We respond to all requests for work reports within a 24-hour period. Everything that comes in is handled and dealt with and out. We the maintenance of the property, the long-term upkeep, the capital investments, which has to be a constant thing, is only achieved at scale. Smaller projects, you drag everything out, and everything goes into some state of disrepair. So, in my view, and I live in this town, you should not be building a rental community for 130 units. You cannot achieve long-term. That's not the best thing for this town.
So just a follow-up to that, and then I'll let others ask their questions. So is 216, is what I'm hearing you say is 216 units is your bottom line minimum number of units that you would like to see for this project?
Well,
You're not willing to negotiate under that number?
I'll talk about anything, but what I at some point the economics go over the edge. Is the number 205 or is the number 216 or is the number 180? I don't think the number is 180. Okay, we developed the plan on. We wanted in excess of 200 units because we did not believe that we would not make a presentation to you under 200 units. That was a given from the beginning with us. If we could not achieve a minimum of 200 units, don't do it. So my question to you is there a difference to the city when you do 200 units versus 216 units? If it's going to mean a more solid footing on the economics, is 16 units a difference when you've already got 200? That's my question to you, but that's a question. But an answer to you is, look, if you want to sit down and we can explore a lot of things about this, nothing is cast in stone, but I firmly believe that if we go under 200 units, I think it's the wrong thing for Elmhurst. It's the wrong thing for us, and I think it's the wrong thing for Elmhurst. That's honest truth.
Thanks.
Which I think
Alderman
is what
Healy,
you want.
just to let everyone know, we got about 5 minutes left, so if you want to talk or ask a question after Alderman Healy, just give me a high sign.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to start by saying that I'm hoping that within the next few weeks, the council takes action to reduce your commute down York Road. I'm hoping that happens.
Thank you.
For my main question, I guess before I get to my question, just a little bit of a brief history. So when this council tackled the Hahn Street project again, we had a lot of discussion amongst ourselves about what we wanted to see, and as you might imagine, there was a lot of stuff. But certainly rentals were discussed at that time. We hired a consultant to tell us what might make sense for that property, and the consultant came back and told us rentals, that the rental market was hot. That caused a little concern within the community, that caused a little concern on the dais, because people hear rentals and people tend to think certain things. You and the other finalist have gone out of their way, and I believe it's part of your brand that you're a luxury rental company. So my question is, 216 units seems like a lot. I read that you expect to have 100% residency by December of 2016. What happens if that doesn't happen? Let's go kind of worst case or towards that end, and you don't get the kind of response or the kind of people signing up, and it's December 2016, and you're at 70% occupancy. Thank you. what does Lincoln do in that situation? Do you relax your standards? You talked earlier about the stringency which you go through to vet your residents. Do you have a process, or do you start to walk down the criteria, or do you say we have a certain level, and if we don't meet it, we're willing to live at 70%?
What you want to do is always protect the bottom line, or the downside, okay? So that's what you would do as a smart owner and operator. You protect your downside. So what you don't relax your standards. You don't bring people in who cannot pay the rent. But what you may do is offer concessions. So you may not get as much income, but what you want to do is get the building occupied. The first thing you do is get occupancy in the building at your standards for your resident. So you may not achieve the rent level that you want, but a unit achieving $1,500 a month is better than a unit that you want $1,700 a month for and you sit vacant on for 6 months. The economics are easy to figure out. So what you do is you establish your occupancy first, but you do not relax your standards. You still qualify your people with the same set of standards that you would always. But you may get them in there in the initial stage. If there's a downturn in the economy that we kind of all used to right now, you're going, and we've lived through that exact same thing. And what you do is you adjust to get your occupancy first. So you get the occupancy in there, and then as things get better, things come back. It's better to have occupied units than it is to say, we don't rent anything for under $2,000. You just don't do that. That's just not smart business. An empty building that's going to demand, even in retail, $25 rent for retail when I can only get 20, it's kind of silly to say, well, I'm only going to rent it for $25. You just don't do that. You rent it for the $20 and you live to be there another day.
So who you're targeting as an audience doesn't change. What you charge them may.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we're right at about 30 seconds left. Alderman Dunn.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know you've made some changes since your first proposal. I think the number of units have stayed the same. What is the average square foot per unit, and did that change from version 1 to the current proposal?
We didn't change any of our unit sizes, and the average is on a one-bedroom is, I can't answer that. No, sorry. What I don't know how to do is turn this thing off.
He keeps his own time, I like
Sorry about that. What was the answer? Oh, one bedrooms averaging 725, two bedrooms averaging 1,100. That's I believe that was the same numbers we were at 2 months ago. So I don't think we've changed our targeted unit sizes.
Okay.
Is that what your question was?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've kept those the same. And those are what we find will most appeal to the demographic that we're looking for.
Okay. Well, Mr. Byrne, I want to thank you and your group for your presentation, and we'll let you know. Thank you very much. What else do we have here? Do we have any other? Before we wrap up, I just want to go over next steps and at least the initial next meeting. Today's November 12th. Next Monday is the 18th. That is a full council meeting and a hopefully finalization of 100% through of our budget. Then on the 25th will be committee meetings as scheduled, but we're hoping to do all of our circle backs in one night. History has shown that we can usually do that. So the 18th is council meeting with budget review. The 25th is committee meetings with circle back. So, and I was discussing this with city staff earlier today. The most realistic opportunity for us to have a substantive conversation, a committee of the whole, is December 2nd, Monday, December 2nd. That is, we would have a regularly scheduled council meeting, and then we would have our first opportunity to discuss amongst ourselves all of the information we've been getting over the past 3 or 4 months. Does that sound good? Committee of the Whole, yes. Alderman Levin.
I know that we have some financial analysis that we've been provided with respect to our consultant. Are we going to be discussing that? Is it executive session, or is that, no?
No, we're gonna, and what we have received so far is what I'll call a draft, because some of the stuff has changed a little bit, and we want to give city staff and some of the folks they're working with full opportunity to make sure that they give their best effort to give us an apples-to-apples comparison, but also, so for example, Alderman Healy asked a question about what metrics were applied when relating to the schools and what numbers, and we're just going to take the opportunity to double-check that. And yes, I would anticipate, although we can talk about anything, trees or anything we want, I would anticipate that the December 2nd meeting will be heavily numbers-based, because although they have provided their numbers, both applicants chose in both rounds to really sell the sizzle a little bit and leave it up to us to crunch the numbers. So I think it will be a heavily numbered conversation.
And do we expect to have the final report by December 2nd?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Alderman Gutenkauf.
Do we have an opportunity to submit additional written questions that would be passed along to the developers? And if so, do we have a deadline for that?
You know what? That's a good question. Yes, I think that's the appropriate thing to do. And I would say, hold on a second. Let me go can't fix my calendar here. Give city staff enough time. If we can shoot by maybe Thursday or Friday of next week, I think would be enough time. Give them about a week to pull together a report for us, among other things that they're getting for us. Okay? Any other questions, comments before we get going? Ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman York, second. Alderman Palomsky, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.